Hi, and welcome to the podcast channel for podcastmybusiness.com.au and also for contentmadeeasy.com.au. And today we have Karen. I'm not going to try and pronounce your surname, Karen, I'll let you do that, but Karen from hearing.com.au. I'll let you all guess what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm Karen Hirschausen. I'm an audiologist at Hearing Australia, and we're going to be talking about hearing.
Absolutely. Okay. So, audiologist is a qualification. It takes a long time. It is effectively a doctor's qualification.
Yeah, it's a university qualification. So I
Mm.
did an undergraduate degree and then a postgraduate degree, and then we have an intern program that runs for 1 year
Mm.
after that. So
Mm.
generally takes about 6 years before you are a fully fledged audiologist.
Wow. Okay. So, what drove you to want to do that?
Yeah, lots of people that I've met in the audiology background often have a personal story where had a family member who has had hearing loss or they've had some experience that way. I was a little bit different. Was always interested in working with people and helping people. And I was sort of just in high school working through what are the different occupations that help people. And I was looking at speech therapy, and audiology came up. And I actually did work experience with the Commonwealth Acoustic Laboratories, as we were known then, in Lismore, and I really enjoyed it and have really loved it ever since.
Hmm. Okay, that's great. Okay, I just had a little error message come up, so we'll see how that goes. We might just do the first little bit again. Okay, cool. So that's good. Okay, so let's look at some questions because what we wanted to do, we wanted to talk about hearing and how important it is for business, and I think it's one of those forgotten things um, in the world of communication. We all know communicating is important, and part of communication is good hearing. So, how often do you find people actually even bother talking about this?
Yeah, it's usually one of those things that pops up once it's gone. So once it's almost too late in some ways. And
Mm.
we don't often think about how important hearing is as communication, but if you're not hearing your communication partner, communication can really break down very quickly and
Mm.
relationships can break down as well.
Mm. Okay, so look at me. I mean, I have a voice for radio and podcasting, and a face too. No, so I guess is it easier for someone like me that's got a loud voice that projects more easily to be heard?
Yeah, definitely as some voices are easier to hear than others. We do find it really common. Age-related hearing loss, we tend to lose the high frequencies first. So
Mm.
people will often find that women's voices or small children's voices are the ones that they start to notice are a little bit more difficult to hear.
Mm.
Whereas men's voices might retain ease of hearing those a little bit longer.
Mm.
But with men, the other thing that can impact on your hearing or in communication is not having your face clear. So if somebody does have a hearing loss, covering your face with beards and moustaches can actually make the lip reading more difficult. So whilst they might have a hearing problem, they're sort of using strategies of lip reading to overcome that. So it could be that whilst their hearing is affecting the high frequencies, beards and moustaches might be still impeding communication as well.
Well, I guess you're right. So if you're losing the female voices and they don't have beards and moustaches, then that's pretty good.
That's right.
Benefits for that. Okay, so talking about men, because there's going to be a easy question to answer. Are there certain industries where people lose their hearing more?
Yeah, definitely there are industries that are related to hearing loss being more common. Obviously, industrial industries, agricultural industry
Mm.
as well. The music industry is a big one. So that can sort of fall into hospitality as well, the people that are around live music or loud live music
Yeah.
as well. So those industries definitely do tend to be much more common with people experiencing hearing concerns.
Well, so in the music industry, they have customized in-ear phones, shall we say?
Yeah.
So how do they work?
Yeah, they can be customized to the shape of your ear, so they're a really comfortable fit. And then often inside them, they'll have a filter that doesn't block out sound entirely, a bit like a what people might perceive an earplug to do.
Mm.
What those specialized earplugs are doing is actually, rather than blocking out sound completely, they're filtering it and also bringing it down to a slightly safer level as well.
Yeah, because they tend to reduce the bass and keep the treble, because your voice is going to be more of a treble than a bass, more so, I presume.
Yeah, and often bass sounds are, you don't need a very loud bass sound to mask out a high frequency sound. So it can be actually quite a loud high frequency sound, but a very soft bass sound can actually mask that high frequency sound quite easily.
Don't set it to me. I have my music up loud in my car, so you're saying I need to turn it down?
Possibly, depending on how loud it is and how long you're listening to it for as well. So it's also about how long you're exposed to a
Mm.
type of noise or a volume of noise. And 80 dB, we can generally be exposed to that for up to 6, 7, 8 hours. But every 3 dB increase after that actually halves the amount of time that you can be exposed to that level.
Wow. Okay, so 80 is probably my voice. There we go.
Probably a little bit louder. It's fairly loud speech, yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool. Okay. Well, that's good to know. So, what happens when people are not hearing clearly in a workplace?
Yeah, that's when we find that relationships can break down.
Mm.
Misunderstandings can come into play as well. And other people sort of have said things like they might be being perceived as being rude or arrogant because they're perhaps either not replying entirely
Mm.
when somebody speaks, or they're saying something that's a little bit different. So they could be perceived as being rude, or they could be being perceived as being a little bit silly as well because they've answered the question that they thought they've heard, but it's not actually what the person has said.
Yeah, that's interesting because I have a problem like that, and it's a weird one. So, I can be in another room, another section, or wherever in a restaurant or at home or whatever it might be, and people can hear me clearly, but I can't hear them clearly because I don't have my voice. And that gets a bit tricky. And I go, look, you know what? I know you can hear me from pretty much anywhere, but you don't have my voice. You don't have the clarity that my voice. And I've been trained to be an actor years ago. So
Yeah.
I was trained to project my voice to the back of the hall, the back of the theatre. So everyone can hear me, but the reverse is not true. So that's just a hard thing.
Yeah, it can be, but communication is that two-way street. So it's
Yes.
really around, I will do these sorts of strategies and employ these strategies, but I want you to do strategies in reverse. So one of the really common ones we get is my wife or my husband always calls out to me from the other room. I can't
Mm.
hear them. They always do it.
Mm.
They've got a really bad habit of walking away and talking
Sure.
to me or
Yeah.
calling out and saying something from the other room.
Yeah.
And so that is a really hard habit to break.
Yeah.
But what we would probably counsel people on is what is a really good strategy is to say their name first so that they've at least got their attention, and then they can start to concentrate on what you're about to say rather than just
Mm.
launching straight into what you're saying.
I just tell people don't talk to me from another room.
Yeah, all that too. That's right.
Yeah.
Even with normal hearing, that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a lot harder when you've got a hearing loss as well. But even with normal hearing, it's hard enough.
Yeah, look, it's really interesting because I just say that because, again, I know they can hear me and they go, oh, well, if I can hear you, how come you can't hear me? And I think it's being rude. I said, well, you know what? Again, you don't have the voice that I have. So, how can workplaces better accommodate employees with hearing problems?
Yeah, they can certainly obviously follow all the rules and regulations if you are in a noisy work environment, by making sure that they protect people's hearing by supplying earplugs and earmuffs if they need to. But simple things such as if somebody does have concerns with their hearing and you're having a meeting, for instance, having that person be able to be seated at the table where they've got access to being able to visually see everybody around the table. So they might not need to be stuck in the corner perhaps, but maybe in the middle of the table where they've got an opportunity to do that lip reading. Providing an
Mm.
agenda, if they're having a staff meeting, is often very helpful as well. And being able to sort of practice if somebody hasn't understood you. So it could be a work colleague, or it could be a customer coming in. If they haven't understood what you've asked of them, either repeating it a little bit slower. You don't have to slow down your speech too much, because that actually makes things worse. It over exaggerates your lip cues. But just rephrasing, so repeating slightly slower. You don't need to shout. That often makes things more distorted on your face. But learning how to rephrase something as well. So an example would be if you have somebody who's ringing up to make an appointment for your business, and you're scheduling a time with them, and they're having difficulty hearing between 2:30 and 4:30. We could rephrase it to say 2:30 or 4:30. Or if they're really struggling, we could even count the numbers. So 1, 2, 2:30, and then get them to repeat that back to you as well, to make sure that they've understood. So there are a
Well,
lot of strategies people can employ.
well, 2:30 is a popular time for dentists.
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Okay, so now this where it gets interesting. So, what is the liability for an employer with staff hearing issues, and especially in like office type environments that don't traditionally have lots of noise?
No, that's right. So it does tend to be not thought of as much in that environment. Certainly, if you know that somebody in your workplace does have hearing loss, um, we should be making accommodations, suitable accommodations for that person to be able to perform their role appropriately. So that could be access to a volume phone that's a little bit louder than a regular phone, or having a cubicle that's perhaps in a quieter area as well, so they may be not as interrupted by background noise. So that those things are just sort of, I guess, fair work sort of things that we'd be thinking about for people.
Mm. Yeah, I have a shared office space at the ACU in North Sydney, and we have booths. I call them Superman or Clark Kent booths.
You go in and get changed.
Well, you go in and you can talk in there, so you're not in a shared office environment. People can't hear you. Um,
Yeah.
for some reason, it doesn't work for me.
Right. Okay.
People can still hear me.
Doesn't matter whether you're in the booth or not.
No, I'm one of those people. And especially when I get loud. So what you're saying, Karen, is that being loud and slow is not helpful.
Not always. That's right.
Right.
It's not
Okay.
always the answer. So
Yeah.
slowing down a little bit can help, but shouting often doesn't actually get the message through.
Right. So, do you think that employers should be providing free hearing tests for their staff on a regular basis?
I think if you've got a health and wellbeing program, I think it would be really great to include a hearing check as part of that health and wellbeing
Mm,
program, or even just education on keeping your hearing safe, not only
mm,
at work but also outside of work too. There's things that we can do. Lots of people are working from home now as well, and so they're perhaps using headsets and listening
mm,
under earbuds or headphones for maybe a little bit longer than what they might have done traditionally.
mm,
So some education on safe use of headsets, or making sure that your headsets can't be turned up beyond a certain volume, that they're always maintaining a certain safety level of volume.
mm.
I think workplaces should, yeah, be thinking about those things for sure.
So, talking about headphones and headsets, so frequently when I wear them, my ears get hot. Is that a potential issue?
No, not unless you're probably somebody who might be more prone to eczema or some skin conditions that might get worse when they're in a sort of a hot, moist environment. It's not necessarily going to make that happen, but if you are somebody that's a little bit prone to it, you might want to wipe them over with a disinfectant wipe, or just make sure that you're giving your ears a bit of break every now and then to let a bit of air in.
Mm,
But we also recommend, even with any earbud or headphone use, that you do limit how long you're listening to them in one sitting, and that you do take regular breaks as well, and just give your ears a bit of time to reset.
mm. You mean as long hour flights, you shouldn't, 14-hour flights, you shouldn't leave them on all the time?
Try and avoid it if we can. Yeah, that's right.
Right. I'm curious, what about noise cancelling headphones? I mean, you can encourage them for a long time. So, what are they like?
Yeah, there's actually really good advantages to those. Part of the the really great thing about noise cancelling headphones is that you're often not then tempted to turn the noise up extra loud to overcompensate for any of the other noise that might have leaked in when you don't have that noise cancelling feature turned on, or back in the day when we didn't have that noise cancelling feature on. So think about years ago, you'd see people perhaps mowing their lawns with their Walkmans on,
Yeah.
and the volume you would have had to turn your Walkman up to hear your music or whatever over the top of the lawnmower. That's actually creating a little bit of damage to your hearing potentially. But noise cancellation does tend to deal with that issue quite well.
So, as a rule, what would be better, headphones or the in-ear ones that fall out all the time?
Sounds like you've got a preference.
Yeah, yeah, like similar to earbuds, but they never work for me, and I never seem to find a pair that just sits there. And the over the ear ones you can't find.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, look, there probably isn't too much difference. It will come down more to preference. Some people do
Right.
find the headphones a little bit more comfortable. They prefer not to have something sitting in their ear. There is, I guess, that little bit of space between where the sound is coming out with the headphones, as opposed to an earbud where it is pushed into your ear canal. But a lot of the earbuds and the headphones now do have that safety feature on them where they won't
Mm.
go over a certain volume.
Yeah, I've noticed that. So, how do you think that the world of hearing in the workplace is going to evolve over the next few years?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think we know that hearing for recreational noise is becoming probably a little bit more of a concern rather than workplace noise, because there are a lot of safety measures and rules and regulations now for traditionally noisy workplace environments. And it's now the recreational noise that is probably more of a concern because it's not policed, for a better
Mm.
word. But I do think as work changes over time, and as I said earlier, we've got people that are potentially working from home more often than before and utilizing things like Zoom or Teams to communicate, and they are often using headphones in a lot more regular ways. So yeah, I think over time, if that continues, that trend continues, we might see more workplaces want to introduce a hearing check as part of their
Mm.
annual sort of health and well-being.
And
Um,
there we were, coincidentally hearing a loud car driving past. So rare. Look,
Perfect
I'm not
timing.
as well. There you go. I'm not quite that bad. Okay, so do you foresee the future where they have cones of silence in shared office spaces where you can sit underneath that?
Yeah, interesting. I do work sometimes in an open space office, and as the technology actually gets better and better at cancelling out the outside noise, maybe there's less need for that. But
Mm,
I do think we are living in a fairly noisy world now, and it's not until you actually remove yourself from noise that you
mm.
realize how much noise you're being exposed to
Yes.
day in and day out.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. All right. Well, thank you, Karen. So that was hearing.com, not .com.au. And you do provide free hearing tests as well, so people can log in and grab a free hearing test. And I'm going past some places in Westfield these days, hearing places, and they're trying to get you into the hearing centre. And I say quietly, "How's your hearing?" And I walked past them and I said, "It's very good, thank
It's
you."
good.
Quite as quietly as anyone went, "Look," gave me a thumbs up, going, "Okay, you're fine."
You
Quite happy
passed
with
my
that.
test.
I passed the test. Yeah, it's just enough to hear, but most people go, "Oh, excuse me," and then get them in and whatever. But I heard.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, what you said is correct. We do offer a free 15-minute hearing check that you can
Mm,
book online at any of our Hearing Australia centres.
mm,
We also have a really excellent program in Australia as well. So we have a federally funded government program that
mm,
is for eligible pension card holders and Veterans Affairs card holders,
mm.
where the government actually subsidises hearing tests and hearing devices as well. So we are actually really lucky in Australia with we do have a lot of access to being able to help our hearing, and we've got some help there as well.
Yeah, and one of the great things is, putting more into it again, is hearing tests and what have you for children starting school as well. Really, really important to do that.
Yeah, we like to think of it as people often get their teeth checked, they get their
Mm,
eyes checked. We want people to think about having their hearing checked at the
mm,
same time. For
mm,
children, it is really important because if you can't hear in the classroom, it is very difficult to then learn anything in the classroom as well. And behaviour can certainly be impacted too.
mm.
It's very hard to concentrate when you're not hearing very well.
You get frustrated and what have you, and yeah, yeah, it's led to lots of issues in the past. All right, great. Well, look, thank you very much for that, Karen, and thank you for taking the time.
Thanks. Great to talk to you.